You're listening to the PR Wind Down Podcast, the show for public relations professionals who are ready to see real change in the PR industry. We are your hosts, April White and Laura Schooler. Let's get ready to wind down. Okay, so Laura, do you want to ask me how I've been?
That's one of my flaws. I rarely ask people how they are.
It's so funny because I always start like every podcast like, Laura, how are you? In my head, I don't know, it was really funny to just like flip the script on you.
April,
Yeah.
how are you?
That was so genuine. I have been a little bit under the weather. So I have been on the couch being as lazy as possible, which turns out is actually quite fun. It's kind of sad it takes me being sick to like
I mean, it's like getting a day off school, right?
Kinda, yeah. Although it was all weekend too, so it doesn't quite count. What did I watch? I watched Love Hard, which this is how sick I was that I was just like, Netflix, get me a comedy. Cool. Whatever it is, yes, right? It was like play. And so at first I'm like, this is going to be so dumb because it's basically about this chick who gets catfished. So she's a columnist that writes about dating horror stories and then, gets whisked off her feet by this guy that she's been chatting with online and goes to surprise him for Christmas and discovers that he used his best friend's photo. Right? And then craziness ensues. I thought it was going to be kind of cheesy or dumb. It was actually really cute.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah. I think I actually recommend it, and I'm a little bit...
What's it called again?
Love Hard. I also watched Love Drunk in Ibiza, which I also thought would be terrible, but was actually quite entertaining.
Wow, you really are watching
I'm telling you. I just settled in and was like, I don't care how bad they are, I'm really sick. And then they're not that bad. Okay. Anyway.
I watched Baseball and Judge Judy, so.
Yeah, they were actually...
And the Jeffrey Dahmer series. That was all I watched all year.
I was like, I couldn't watch anything dark. I kept trying to... Yeah. I wanted to watch Depp versus Heard or whatever the Netflix series is about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, but I need something that makes me happy, and this is not it.
Did you watch the Wham documentary?
Not yet.
Oh, that will make you happy.
What's it called again?
The Wham documentary. I don't know.
It's literally called that? Okay, I'll just look it up.
Might be. Fine. I mean, it's pretty new.
Okay, cool. Right, and I have Katya in the waiting room. So it's like
all
perfect timing. I'll let her in. So our guest today is Katya Allison. She is the host of Let's Talk Marketing, the podcast, and also an expert marketing consultant. And she's here today to talk about her new podcast, recent trends in marketing communications, and the future of branding.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
We are so excited. I first want to hear about this brand new podcast. What inspired it? I know you told me a little bit behind the scenes, but for our listeners, give us the full story.
So I had previously hosted a podcast for a company that I was with, and we had done it for a couple of years, and then they decided to not move forward with the podcast. And what I realized is, shoot, I really like it. I really like it, and I love being able to talk about marketing. It is something that I get asked at family functions when you're out and about, like new business. People are always asking about things. And I think in the world of marketing, there is so much to learn and have to keep up that I thought may as well bring that conversation to the forefront. Now, this podcast dives into any strategy across all of marketing disciplines. It's not about an industry. It's really just taking one subject and being able to dive deep, but also being able to tell the marketer's story of the marketer that I'm interviewing. Because I think most people don't think of themselves as marketers. But if you ask them, what was your first marketing job, and then what's your current marketing job, to be able to see like that journey of,
Mhm.
oh, I started in college doing promotions and events, and now I'm in PR. There are a ton of people that start in PR as well too, and then
Yeah.
navigate their way through that. So being able to uncover those stories, being able to highlight strategies and diving deep is ultimately where this came to be. And I always say, as long as the listeners walk away with one insight that they can use or talk about at a cocktail party, because I like to drop those little nuggets in there as well too. I think like check, it's done. And I have so
Mm.
much fun doing it.
So cool. I love that. What are some of the trends that you've been super excited about lately? Where you think things are going?
So I am obsessed with AI right now, which anyone in marketing who isn't. And I'm obsessed to the point where I'm starting to create just kind of like this pool of content that I'm going to eventually post out where I can do the learning of the AI for marketers. Because I think that's the tough thing too. When it comes to AI, you have to be able to dive deep into it. And the question consistently comes up like, is AI going to take marketing jobs away? I definitely have an opinion about that. I think that we can use it to our advantage. People will never go away. You have to be able to leverage that to maximize what it is that you're doing so that you can really dive into the creative part. If there are things that like AI can help assist you in, marry them both and then become a super prompter, right? Like that's
Mm.
going to be now a qualification that you're going to see on resumes, that you're going to see on LinkedIn. I feel like I am a prompt writer. And that means something because it's not just, write me a blog on AI, for instance, right? That's going to spit out something very general and that
Mhm.
doesn't really provide even an SEO value to it. It's the prompter behind that is going to be able to craft the right prompt to get something that does rank from an
Mhm.
SEO perspective, right? So I think you have to be able to work hand in hand. Very passionate about like the content creation. Like I think my next thing is diving into the design aspect of AI, right?
Oh,
Like so
yeah.
it's diving into like Mid-Journey or Designer, both AI tools, but the prompting is very different for both. It's my current obsession, and I think like
I
where
love
it's
that.
going, and
Yeah.
understanding when to use it and when not to use it.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, the design piece. My first introduction to that was a friend of mine who's an IT future forward kind of guy, and he's like, "Did you know about this platform where you can describe the dream you had last night and it will recreate it for you?" And I was like,
That is insane.
"What?" He's like,
that
"You
I
have
think.
to know about this. You have to do it. You have to do it right now. Do it right now." Like, "I'm
Did you do it?
not yet. I
The
still need
hardest thing
to."
for me is remembering my
It
dream, right?
it
Very
creeps.
true. All of the little details of it. Some
Yeah.
of them may be a little scary. I mean, move over Bloomhouse. Like it would
I
be
know, I was
amazing
like,
to
"I
be
don't
able to create
know,
something
this
like
sort
that.
of creeps me out," but
To me, I think it's so amazing. I was talking to a content creator that I follow, and she had the most beautiful like front porch decoration. It was around like the 4th of July or some patriotic holiday of one or the other, right? And I commented on her post and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm obsessed with your front porch." She immediately called me and she's like, "I have to tell you right now, that's not my house. I generated that picture in Mid-Journey." And I'm like, "You're kidding me." She's like, "No." And the amount of people that were responding and engaging with that particular post was insane. I was like, "Well, I feel like I've seen her house, but I obviously don't know the details of it." It had enough similarities and it was just an inspiration post, which I thought was so fascinating. She's like, "No, I went in there and I dove in and started creating all these pictures," and she posted that one as an inspiration picture, and
Wow.
it legit looked like her house. It was insane.
I'm a little bit creeped out, a
I
little
know.
bit. I'm like, I can't decide what percentage I'm impressed and what percentage I'm creeped out.
I feel like the right answer is 70-30, and I don't know
Okay,
if like the
impressed
creeped out
30,
is 70 or you're okay with the 70, but like it's really a mixed bag, but I think 70-30 is I think it's the right
oh my
split. It does
gosh.
make you think. I had a conversation today and I wasn't on camera and they're like, "No, you're probably just an AI generated person." And I just thought that that was the funniest thing. I feel like it definitely has the potential to go there, but I do enough work in AI where I can tell if something's written by AI or not.
Right.
I have a question, and we've talked about this a little bit before. I
Yeah.
have used the OpenAI, but information is only as new as 2021. I learned shortly after I started using it. So I just a few days ago, and only very once or twice cursory, started using Bing AI and Bard, which is the Google. Do you know like what's better
Well,
or worse, or the difference, or why you would use one over the other?
well, I don't know that I could say definitively what is better or worse, but I definitely have an opinion about it. I
Oh
don't think
yeah,
that I don't think that there's one that's going to master it all. I think that you have to be a master of all of them
all of them.
and know when to use them for, what to use them for. I think a lot of times, yeah, Chat GPT is limited, but you can also give it a website to take a look at. You can also, train it to get to know you a little bit better as well too. And I think being a master of what's out there and knowing which ones you can go to for what is really going to give you like that
Mhm.
upper hand. Like I know not to go to Chat GPT for the most current relevant information. Like
Right.
for that, that's a research thing, right? And I can prompt it and knowing that if I wanted to do research, I'm backdating that kind of research, but that will at least help guide and narrow down my research,
Mm.
my human research that I'm
Yeah.
going to do.
Mhm.
Like, and that's
I
why I say it's an assistant,
A
not a
doer,
catch-all.
right,
Right.
right.
Yeah,
I've asked it to do a couple things, and I'm like, "This is malarkey." I'm using that word,
yes,
Well,
and I'm like, it was
go
not
for
good.
it.
Like, I was like, write a bio for Laura Schooler, and they put stuff in there that was a lie, and I was like, where did you even come up with that? But what I found in the little bit that I've used all of these is that the Chat GPT, I kind of liked it better than the other two so far, and I want the Chat GPT to become updated into, today's
Yeah.
date. The other two, the answers that from a PR, standpoint, like doing some PR research or PR ideas, I didn't love the way they answered me as much as I like Chat GPT, but Chat GPT is not up to date. So
Well, see, and to me, it sounds like you're asking it for questions that you could also just search in
Google,
Google for, right?
yeah.
Which that will surface it up. I think it's a really great tool for extracting things from like a transcript, right? Like it's really great for that. For a top level research, really fantastic. Being able to summarize something, fantastic for that. Or even
Mhm.
giving you like a list of questions. I'm not an advocate for using Chat GPT for it to come up with questions for your podcast because I think that that has to be very organic. But I
Right.
do think for a guest that maybe is in an area that I don't maybe know a ton of, I would ask Chat GPT. Well, let's take product marketing, for example. I know enough about product marketing, but I want to be able to come up with some really relevant questions. Like I would prompt
Mhm.
Chat GPT, right? I'd say, okay, you are an experienced marketer in digital marketing. This is your area of expertise. You understand go to market plans, but you want a better understanding of the role of product marketing for B2B companies, right?
Mhm.
Like that's an incredibly extensive prompt that you put in there. And then it's going to give me a summary of what it is. And this is also how I use Chat GPT as well, too, is I don't know if I just don't understand technical language as much. Like I have to really be able to absorb it. So oftentimes when it gives me that response, I'll say, I don't quite understand this, or can you explain it in an analogy? And I can even tell it what type of analogy, right? Like as a parent, can you give it to me as like an analogy that a parent would understand, a parent of a 2-year-old would understand, right? And then
Oh,
it's giving me an analogy that can really help me break it down and totally understand and
interesting.
then
That's a cool way of yeah, that's a
Yeah.
cool way of using that I hadn't
yeah,
thought of. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is a bit of
yeah.
a curveball. So,
Oh,
but
Speaking of baseball.
Laura, speaking of
consider me
baseball,
prepared.
a story that Laura found that we are going to talk about a little bit later in the podcast after we lose you, but I'm so curious about your thoughts on it. So there is an article about, should the use of AI impact what you're billing clients, right? So if it's making you faster at your job, do you still bill them for the same amount of time if you're an hourly consultant? And as a person listening to the podcast, how do you account for AI making you faster at things that normally you would have charged double for?
So I definitely have an opinion on this. And like for
I
me,
knew you would. I
I
knew you
yeah,
would. Okay. I was like, I
who
know it's a
knew? I
curveball, but
just
I
have
know she can handle
I
it.
have an opinion about everything. Good or bad, I don't know.
That's why we
But
love you.
I would first of all, like I like to do my consulting contracts in one of two ways. One is the retainer, right? And then the other is project based. And I like project based because I know exactly how much time I'm dedicating. They know exactly what to expect, and how I get to that to me doesn't matter. I think for the retainer clients, it's really hard for people to see value from like consulting from that perspective, right?
Yep.
How much time are you spending on XYZ? So, but that's really great for people who don't know what it is that they want, but they know that they want someone to just kind of be there. So it's really great for that. I
Yes.
think when it comes to leveraging, chat GPT or any AI to make you faster, faster doesn't mean that you would pay less. It just means I'm going to get to it and I can do more for you. So that's to me is the way that I explain it. It just
Mm.
means that something that would have, taken me 1 to 2 weeks to research. Let's say something takes me 2 weeks to research because I have to be able to do interviews and I also have to do my own research and I have to, come up with questions and do all of these different things is now cut in half. That's a week. That means that I can get to the next project or the next part of the project sooner so that
Yeah.
they are getting what it is that they've asked for sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not that I'm trying to charge more for that. There are certain things that take a little bit more time, but it allows me to be a lot more creative and really dive into the strategy because I use it as such an admin.
Yeah. That makes sense. Very cool. I'm so glad I asked.
No. Now it's going
Okay.
to seem like all I do
Okay.
is chat GPT. I didn't
No, no,
mean,
no.
I told you I had a passion for
Okay.
it.
Okay. So
This is my
with
passion right now.
with that, this is a choose your own adventure two-part question. Is there something that we didn't ask you yet that you wish we had, something you're passionate about, you want to talk about, or something you want to ask us?
Ooh, this is a little choose your own adventure. I would say I kind of want to throw that question back at you in
Okay.
regards to AI and charging more and having that conversation. Since I'm not going to be part of the
Oh,
conversation, I kind of want a sneak peek as to what your thoughts are on it.
that's very interesting. Well, we have purposely, as an agency, gotten away from billable hours that we share with clients. I know a lot of people are doing that. And sometimes when we're up against a competitor who's leading with that, it's like, oh, well, they're giving us 35 hours a week or whatever. So how many hours are we getting for that retainer? It's like, what? Like, that's not how this
Yeah.
works, right? So we've gotten away from that on purpose. However, as a former freelancer, I think it is a confounding question because you do want to work more efficiently for clients and you do want to use the tools that are out there, not do things the old school way just for the sake of it to charge more.
Right.
But
Yeah.
also, I have found as I got older that I get faster and faster and faster at things. So, I can probably write a press release. I'm afraid to say this out loud, but like 30 minutes,
Mhm.
Yeah.
a junior person or me as a junior person, it might have taken me 2 or 3 hours, right? And it's like I just have all the formulas on my head. I already know what I'm looking for. I know I need a quote that's roughly like this. I know that the structure is going to be here, like and then
Yeah.
done. In general, I even as a freelancer kind of tried to make it be like, okay, well, press releases generally take about an hour or two, or whatever. Like, is
Yeah.
that okay with you? Does that work with your budget? And then if you're faster than that, then you're
You're
faster than
you're
that.
faster than that.
And you never know, even if you write it in the blink of an eye, it may come back with very heavy edits because somebody in house has a totally different take on whatever. So it
Yeah.
gives you like buffer too, right? Of how much time it's going to take you to complete something. So
Yeah, because it is true. There is an over and an under when it comes to any work that you're doing. And ultimately, when
100%.
you're a consultant, they're paying for your time and your expertise, but mainly your expertise in something. So the fact that I've been a marketer for 14 plus years, I know what, to your point, I can be efficient in. And you have to be able to be the expert in your space. And being the expert also means being the expert in the tools in your space as well,
Mhm.
too. And that
Agree.
is part of it. That is part of it. And to me, that's also, I think, why I've really dove straight into AI because I'm like, this is obviously not going away. I don't want to be a step behind. And if I'm not digging in and figuring out the best way to use this for myself and then for my
Mhm.
customers, then when I go to the next brands that I work for, I'm also taking all of that expertise to them, and that's going to make them better as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Right. The older you get and the more experienced you get, the better you are, the faster you can do things. I mean, you can shortcut stuff, I mean, immeasurably. So,
mhm.
should you be getting paid a lot less because of that? No, you should in fact be getting paid more because of that.
Yeah,
So, so April and
I
I
agree. I
are
agree. Like that
right,
totally, yeah, that is true. Like I'm being penalized because I'm doing my job better
right.
or that
Yeah.
I
Right,
know
I'm
how to do
being
my
more
job.
efficient and more accurate for you. I'm only getting paid for 12 minutes, and then like the junior person who had to go around the world and back, and it took them 2 weeks, is getting paid like thousands of dollars while I made 37.50. I mean $37.50. Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. So you say, okay, well then just make your hourly rates a lot higher. But if you say to a client, yeah, I bill $750 an hour, I mean, their head will explode. So that's
Mhm.
why it's been a discussion before AI. So now, how does AI
Mhm.
maybe finally help us get to a resolution or something? Because it's a challenge. As somebody myself who sometimes bills retainer, sometimes by the hour, sometimes by the
Yeah.
project.
Well, and I also think it probably happens a ton more, like you said, from a PR perspective, because how do you also quantify relationship building,
Right,
which is a must in PR to be really good at it. You have
right,
to be able to build your network, but
Mhm.
how do you articulate that down to like a billable, like, hey, no, I, went to this thing and I met this person, I built my network so that when this person reaches out and I've got a story for them, like,
right.
I have
Or
that
if there's a
connection.
crisis, it's not going to
Yep.
be as bad because I already have a friendship with the person. The other thing I've noticed, and this sounds crazy like 101, the imperativeness, is that a word? The
Let's make it one.
SATs.
yeah,
SAT.
I did a
It's
lot
all
better in math than verbal, which is the joke of all of this. But building media lists is so important. I've seen how important it is. Not
Yeah.
only that junior people aren't sending other people on some wild goose chase that's never going to amount to anything,
Mm.
Yeah.
but staying on top, especially now with the people who are moving, because they're moving every week. And if
Yeah.
you can get to somebody like right when they move to a new job, you are so much more likely to get a story right away because they haven't been bombarded by 10,000 PR people yet. And it
Mm.
works for me over and over again. And the reason why I tell you this is because as a senior consultant working with agencies with a lot of junior people who are they don't know. There's so many nuances about list building.
Yeah.
And I like fly in, I'm like, you need to put, Mike Smith on this list. And they're like, who? What? I'm like, put Mike Smith on the list. And then the next thing you know, Mike Smith becomes our best friend and writes 3 stories about us within 3 months.
Mm.
How do you put a value on that? It took me
Yeah.
2 minutes, but it changed the nature of the client's trajectory in the media.
No, I
Are you
totally
paying me
agree.
for
I
two
think
minutes?
no, well, and this is why like the time question is so interesting.
Yeah,
Like you are really paying for expertise. If everybody could do it, then there wouldn't
right.
be a need that you're filling, right? But
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
not everybody can do it. Not everybody can, one, build the relationships, build your network and know exactly what it does to like keep in touch. But more
Mhm.
importantly, I think, especially from a PR perspective, it's connecting the dots,
Right.
right? You're picking up on all of these
100%.
things. And like all of a
Mhm.
sudden, Mike Smith, yeah, sure. You had a conversation with Mike Smith about AI, and this person is now doing it. Wait, hold on just a
Mhm.
second. I now have a story that we can build around, like, let's do
Yes. We talked about it our last podcast that has come out, and I even quoted, I think myself, I like to quote myself,
So
about
a true genius quote.
that PR people, like, what did I say? We're your memory, your historian, your dot connectors, all of those things. And so how do you put a price on that? It's not about time, it's something else.
Okay, so with that, where can people find you and where can they find your podcast?
So both can be found on LinkedIn. There's a business page for Let's Talk Marketing podcast. I am on obviously LinkedIn as well too. Look up Katya Allison. The podcast drops every Tuesday on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts is where you can find that. And
I
then
love it.
definitely tell everybody, reach out. I always connect with people, and it is all about connections and networking and, us working together.
Well, it was such a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. And we look forward to chatting with you again, hopefully soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Interesting discussion about AI with Katya, and
Yeah.
that it led to how AI is going to make consultants faster. So are they going to bill for less time when that's how they make their money, right? And so there was an article in Axios that addressed that, and I think we covered a lot of it during our discussion. But there was another article that also sort of wrapped into this that I thought would be an interesting add-on in WorkLife, if you're familiar with that, by Chloe Callahan. She writes tons of stories for WorkLife. And the title of her story was Nearly Half of Workers Say They Work 4 hours a day. And it
Mm.
talks about that nobody actually sits at their computer and works for 8 straight hours. You're doing different things when you're in the office and when you're at home. When you're at home, maybe you're doing the laundry and walking your dog. When you're in the office, maybe you're watching some videos or stuff on your phone or whatever on the side. Apparently, people are working basically truly grinding, working half of the day. I feel like a lot of PR people do work a lot more than 4 hours a day. I mean, they really are grinding.
Yeah.
So I don't know what category of workers, but it was just sort of a study that they did.
That's interesting. I mean, what's funny is that when I made the switch from in office to freelance, I felt like when I was freelance was the first time I actually worked an 8-hour day.
Right.
Because
There
in
wasn't a
an
lot of
off
distractions of people who you worked with or these weird business imperatives like you have to go to this meeting and do this training and,
and
whatever.
you have to
Right.
walk all the way down the hallway to go to the
Right.
bathroom, and then you stop and
Right.
get coffee, and then you run into somebody and you talk about their date last night, and then
Yeah.
half an hour goes by, and
Right.
it's like I felt
That doesn't
like
happen anymore. Right.
no, if you're home alone, the likelihood that you're having random conversations with people
Is almost
while you're going to the
nil.
bathroom is zero,
Right.
right? Unless it's like,
Oh, kitty. Right.
yeah.
So they did this blind survey and they surveyed like people at major companies. So 919 Amazon employees said that 40% of them work 4 hours or fewer. 43% at Microsoft, which was 476 respondents,
Yikes.
and 40% at Google, which was 393 respondents. Each of those companies are on a hybrid schedule. And Meta, which is still remote but pushing for hybrid by the end of the summer, had 33% of people work 4 hours or less than four out of the 316 respondents from the company.
And this is people in person or
It's
it's
hybrid.
both?
It's
Okay.
hybrid. So it doesn't mean that all remote companies are seeing the same results. A company called Atlassian, which encourages employees to work from wherever they want, has 51% of the 82 employees that responded reporting that they work 4 hours or less. So here is what I started thinking. When I am consulting for a lot of times for agencies or whatever, and I'm on call, arguably 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And at any moment, I could be called to pay attention to this or join this meeting or solve something or write something or pitch something or whatever. I'm sitting at my desk, I'm home, I'm not off doing other stuff. Like I'm ready to
Mm.
work. And I keep track of my time, but at the end of the day, maybe I've worked 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, but I'm sitting there for 8 or 9 hours. Do you
So,
understand my question in
yeah,
terms of
yeah.
billing? I'm expected to be doing stuff in real time.
Right. Okay. I
So I'm
mean,
like being a full-time employee but not getting paid full-time hours. So it made me think of that when it says that people are only really working 4 hours or less. And I'm thinking, well, right, but I'll work
but you're
more if
not
it's
getting
more
paid
work,
for right.
right?
Um,
And I'm not getting paid for the time that I'm literally like either sitting available or right, across the street available. So it made me think about this whole idea of how should consultants get paid? Is it by the hour or is it something else? And how do you come to that number?
so I think it's up to them. I think you could be on retainer if that makes you feel more comfortable. The over under that Katya talked about is there, right?
Right.
Sometimes you're going to go over and sometimes you'll be under and you get paid the same. Or you do hourly. I would say, I know, for example, when I was freelancing and I felt like I had to be available I would get assigned thing usually late in the day and then just work until they were done and go to bed, right? So
Mhm.
we're like I waited for all of it to pile up,
Right.
spent my day doing whatever, writing music or going hiking or like just doing stuff for
Right.
myself. If you are tied to a desk and you have something else that you are passionate about, whether it's, okay, I want to be a stand-up comic, I want to write a play, I want to create a piece of music. I mean, these are all creative endeavors. They wouldn't have to be. I want to start my own clothing business. I like, there are things that you could be doing at your desk that
Mhm.
you're sort of parallel pathing. So you're working on that until you get interrupted. Cool. Now I go over here. I bill for that. Go back to my passion project and I work on that. But I think being like stuck at a desk for 8 hours waiting for work and billing for 3, I would not do. So I would either restructure how you do your workday and say, whatever you need, I'll get done by 8 p.m. Eastern before I go, eat dinner and go to bed. Or like I'm just making this up. But I would either do it that way or I would be like, okay, I'm going to be at my desk, but I don't belong to you. I belong to myself. So I'm going to, whatever it is that I care about,
Right.
you know, I'm gonna do in between.
It still isn't answering my question of basically how should consultants who are senior,
I don't think you
be
can
getting
bill
paid?
any hours that you're sitting there unless you're on retainer. You either need to fill the hours with something with more billable stuff or fill it with stuff that matters to you so you don't feel taken advantage of, you know?
So then it goes back to the discussion we're having with Katya. Like, there's
Yeah.
things that, somebody like me or me is able to do in minutes where it would take junior people, they
Then
would
I
never
then
be
I
able to do it. At what point are you getting paid for your brain and expertise, no matter what it is?
I would say when you're a consultant and you're able to charge packages
Right. Like retainers
or
or
retainers
yeah, right.
or like I will do your rebranding for $20,000.
Yeah.
Then you do, because then only you know how many hours it takes. Like I said, most people don't care how many hours it takes. Like, that's so in the weeds for most people. I mean, there's certain people that wanna nickel and dime you, and they care about your hourly rate, and that's the thing. It's like, "Oh, let's get her
Right.
down to this," and then it's
Well,
like,
right. When you
at the
talk
end of the
to
but it's also like, who cares if okay, so okay, fine, I'm $75 an hour instead of 100, and now I'm gonna just charge you an extra
more, right.
half an hour, like, cool. Like, if that's what makes you think that you got your
Right.
deal,
You
like,
just
let's
got, well, right. Because I would say that a lot of times when you talk to agencies or, anybody about doing freelance work,
yeah,
agencies in particular ask, what's your hourly rate?
and that's
And it's like, if
okay.
you give the wrong answer, they're like, oh, well, you're too expensive.
Exactly.
Okay, well, but it's going to take me an hour to do it while you're going to pay somebody less, but they're going to take 10 hours to do it. So,
I mean, I usually tell people when they're interviewing and they're a friend, "I know you're thinking about coming in at, like, 125, but I can already
don't.
tell you, if you do that, you can, but if you do that, the number of hours that any agency can afford to assign you is so low, it might not actually benefit you. So you might be better off coming at, like, 75, 85, whatever, and then you get more hours because you're less intimidating with your hourly rate."
Yep. It's,
Unless you were that, in demand ringer that they bring in to, be the wolf, like of Pulp Fiction, the cleanup wolf, right? Like if you're that person and only you
right.
can do what you do
Yeah.
and nobody else in the entire industry can do it,
Right. Or
charge
you're one of three people who does it.
then
Yeah.
charge $300 an hour. Go for it.
Yeah.
Because you're the only one that can get by with that. Like you're
Yeah.
the only crisis consultant who knows how to clean up
Right.
this thing.
I think that's just the answer. I think you got to it. Everybody wants to be able to just be like, I bill, you have to pay me $20,000 for me to even walk in the door. But there's really only a few people who could get away with that because we still live
Yeah.
in reality,
I mean,
unfortunately.
there's a lot of
We
people
don't live
that
in
can,
AI.
yeah. And it's like, is everyone replaceable? No, but kind of,
Kind of, yeah.
you know?
Okay. I think that is the current reality.
Yeah.
And there are those who have figured out
And
how
there's
to live above reality.
and there's also young junior people that aren't charging that much that have figured out how to be really effective
Yeah.
and you're competing with them, even though you're more senior. Is the extra $40 an hour actually that much more important? You know what I mean? Like that's what you're up against when you're pricing yourself as a
Well,
freelancer.
you have
Well,
to figure out how to walk the lines.
yeah, I'm sorry. It's kind of a depressing answer.
No, I mean, I think it's the right realistic answer, but like I said, there are those people who have been able to create a magical world, and that's what I guess we all want to try to get to. Yeah.
You know,
All right. Well, maybe one day we can have a discussion with somebody about how to create the fantasy.
that'd be fun. Okay.
All right.
On that note, should we call it a day and say au
Let
revoir,
us.
even though I'm not French?
Okay, go.
Thank you for tuning in for the PR Wind Down podcast.
And thank you to Katya for joining us for a really fun interview.
Remember to share your own agency stories and questions. If you subscribe and leave us a rating, it helps us reach new listeners like you.
Can't wait to wine with you again next time.
That was spoken like somebody was waiting for me to chime in and didn't. You want to try again?
No, because we never can do it. That was good.
Okay, great. It's a wrap. But I didn't like clean my house. I didn't like exercise. I didn't really make myself proper meals. I just sort of acted.
Did you make yourself improper meals?
Yeah, lots of them. Lots of like yogurt and granola with strawberries. Lots of frozen
yummy.
pizza.
I love that.
I made hot dogs. Who eats hot dogs? I ate hot
dogs.
dogs.
Did they plump when you cook them?
I do them on the stove. They're turkey hot dogs.
Oh, right.
It's just I was like too tired. It wasn't even too lazy. It just like literally didn't have the energy. So I was like, I had eat cereal. Who eats cereal?
I ate cereal for a while. I haven't done it recently.
Like
I started
a child.
eating
Like
cereal.
I was like, it was like a 5-year-old left alone in the house with just enough know-how to make herself food. Like that's what happened.
My trainer, he's my old trainer because I just don't go to him anymore, but he told me once that my diet should not consist of things that I could find at a child's birthday party. And I was like, oh my God, that's totally like my diet.
Okay, so cake, pizza.
Like ice cream, cake, pizza, and candy, like, and soda.